that, and then we can look at everything now.
All right.
Okay.
Okay. Wow. That took a solid 20 minutes. Sorry about that.
Yep.
The artist stream.
All
Hey, you can
right.
always tell yourself it's going to be easier next time. I
Yeah,
hope.
well, I
Mhm.
thought we gave a dry run of it at lunch, and it didn't. I guess nothing kind of
I guess we
set.
didn't. Yeah, we didn't stream or anything. We just tested audio and stuff like that.
All right,
Okay, should be good to go
learning
now.
experience. All right, so I'm talking about the village of Dreams Reach today, and Dreams Reach is going to be kind of like the central hub for the entire game. It's kind of like the Tristram in Diablo, or kind of the central hub in Bastion. It's got to be kind of one of those places like the that you kind of go to between levels. It's sort of like the where you go to kind of reset, restat, do all your kind of the most important stuff. But it's also the name of the game. So this is kind of where you start off, and um, as a result, in a lot of ways, Dreams Reach kind of has to be the kind of the overarching art direction for what we want to have for the entire game. Because right now our game has a lot of these different themes. Like it jumps from like Celtic inspired worlds to Norse inspired worlds to Asian inspired worlds, and so just to kind of have something overarching that's going to tie everything together, I kind of wanted to just go with an Art Nouveau theme. So I don't know if this is kind of the best background to be using, or if we should just be kind of should I be streaming the game as we do this?
Well, because you have like multiple things you wanted to show, right? Like you could show
Yeah,
some of Dave's art.
yeah. So, but what I kind of want to get into before we get into that was sort of like
Mhm.
my thought process behind what I wanted to do with this, and kind of where I wanted to kind of take it, and kind of the inspirations behind some of the decisions that we wanted to go while we were kind of forming this. So, uh, how do I start? The reason I chose Art Nouveau as sort of like the overarching theme was kind of just sort of like a it's not something I'd really seen very often in a lot of games. And is everyone in the stream kind of familiar with Art Nouveau, the art
Um,
style?
yeah, somewhat, but why don't you explain it for the people who don't know?
Yeah,
Okay,
like you could open up a
so
browser and look at a few
yeah,
examples if
sure,
you want.
sure. All right, let's just bring this over here. Some hockey stats. Art Nouveau. So, what Art Nouveau is it's kind of like this decorative, almost flowery art style. It's you could almost say it's feminine in a way, and a lot of this sort of stuff, it's very kind of portraiture. And what it does is it's kind of like an overarching theme that's gonna help uh, infer a lot of the decisions that we make when it comes to UI, when it comes to our logo designs, when it comes to uh, just sort of anything that we're kind of maybe having a trouble sort of figuring out. It's beyond kind of like looking cool. It's actually got to be something. It's going to be kind of like a crutch that we're going to kind of use throughout the game. So if you guys are familiar with Bioshock, Bioshock, the first one used a lot of the I guess it's Art Deco, and even a game like Transistor used like this bossa nova style. So that if you were to kind of like open up like Transistor Supergiant games, you'll see kind of like everything in their logo, their UI, to kind of the fonts they use, sort of the everything in their theme. It's sort of if you were to kind of analyze this, and to me, Gen Z is like one of my favorite art directors in the entire industry. She's absolutely amazing. And if you kind of look at what they do, the colors they use, everything's sort of inferred by that that Art Deco style. So even when you kind of get to the UI elements, it's always like these sort of dotted UI lines. It's kind of straight right angles everywhere, and what it does, it sort of helps unify kind of the entire game so that it looks, it's got a kind of a steady rhythm to the visuals, I guess. And in a lot of ways, it's invisible. So even if you were to compare the first Bastion, well, the first game they made with Bastion to Transistor, you'll notice that it's the same artist, but it's incredibly different styles and goes kind of beyond the setting. So anyway, yes, we chose a kind of an Art Nouveau style to kind of sink our teeth into. Um, Yep, and so that's where it is. And the nice thing about this is there's actually Art Nouveau does carry into architecture. So I did kind of create like a where's it? Kind of an image bank that we use as a mood board to it's sort of like a reference that we're going to use to kind of infer a lot of the architecture in the game. Open up this folder.
I think it's an interesting choice because Art Nouveau is very like it has a nice use of arcs and spherical shapes, and it's very dreamy in a way.
Yeah. So because it's like a dreamlike state, it did sort of remind me because like some of the imagery we have for dreams are things like the moon, like in a lot of ways dancers and flowers. And so there was a town in Riga, I think Latvia, that has a lot of this kind of Art Nouveau architecture. And it's kind of known for that. Now, the other Art Nouveau that's kind of more well known is Antonio Gaudi, but I found that his stuff almost looks like H.R. Geiger. Like it's a little too melty, almost alien-like and repetitive.
A
It's
little too
cool.
horrifying.
Not
I
dreams,
love
but
it, but
nightmares.
yeah. But if you kind of look at how a lot of these just sort of the archways all kind of like resemble a moon, and it also has kind of like the flowery decor on it. It has a lot of, I guess you would say, uh, let's say it has a lot of figurative elements to it. So there's always like heads and faces that you'll find in there, and just it's very wavy. They try to avoid. I mean, there are like a lot of right angles, but they try to keep things a lot more flowing, a lot more wavy, and I think it's a lot more dreamlike as a result. And it's a very unique style that you hardly ever see represented in games, right? So this is something kind of I really wanted to sink my teeth into. We haven't gotten very far with it yet, but we will. Right now, it's all just gray boxed. But yeah, so this is kind of the direction that we wanted Dreams Reach to go. Uh, and so these are some of the interiors that you'll see, and there's a lot of use of these kind of spirals and flowing lines and kind of flowery patterns and such. The thing is we kind of don't maybe want to overdo do things to so it's kind of like a little too busy or too detailed, but it's a very kind of refined and elegant kind of look. Anyway, and this is kind of one of those things I love is the kind of the half moon, the moon doors, I guess we'd call it. I absolutely love these things. And then just kind of this intricate use of spirals. And so I created a massive mood board of these sorts of things that we're trying to kind of bring into or help us inspire kind of the architecture that we want for this particular world or this town or village, I'd say. Okay, we're kind of jumping into the next part. We have a kind of four, I guess I would say five main structures. The first one is the Consumable Shop, which is the area with kind of, I guess, I don't know if I should speak too much about this, spoilers, but we've got the dojo with Neath that we're familiar with, the Totem Shop, and the Armory. And I guess Consumable Shops is just going to be kind of one of these things that we'll get into later.
Yeah.
But it's going
Well,
to
I
be the
mean, we
one
could say
area.
like it's a boat that lands there, and it's like it's mostly it's not like uh a building like the rest of them, but it's like a boat that shows up, and there's a bunch of people that
Mhm.
the people arrive on the boat have a bunch of stuff you can buy.
Yeah. The consumable area is also because it's not going to be an actual part of Dreams Reach. It's not going to kind of borrow on the same Art Nouveau elements of kind of the architecture. The boat is actually from the Celtic worlds. It's going to be a more Celtic style boat with a more Celtic style kind of shop setup, and it's going to be kind of the one, I guess, different element. We'll try to make it integrated in its own style, but it's going to be the one area that doesn't kind of uh, borrow off of these flowery elements, off the figurative elements and such. It's
It's
going
going
to
to
kind
have
of
its own distinct qualities from
yeah,
that match more the Celtic realm that you visit.
yeah. The Celtic realm is going to be kind of more the Hiberno-Saxon. The materials they use are going to be much more like heavy metals and steels and hard leathers and things like that. So that's kind of the materials that infer that world and the patterns that infer that world. So maybe I'll kind of get into it a bit later. So the overall theme that I wanted for Dreams Reach is I kind of wanted everything to kind of feel a little more cluttered and clustered together. Things uh the thing is, because we only have 4 buildings, right? It's actually Bjorn and I have talked about this a little bit. Is it really felt like it was not very like when you only have 4 buildings, it doesn't feel like a village. It doesn't feel like people live there, and we do kind of want a lot more NPCs involved. So that's actually why we kind of included sort of these extra houses or these kind of other buildings along the sides, just because we wanted it to sort of feel like it was lived in by many more people than just kind of those 4. And we're also going to have a lot of NPCs running around walking around, and side mission characters and such. I don't know if we've gotten into that yet. So
Oh
it
yeah,
did have to feel
we did
a
a few
little more
streams on
depth.
side missions.
Yeah. Yeah. So it did have to feel a little bit more dense than just the 4 buildings, but I didn't necessarily want to model unique buildings and have like one villager equals one unique doorway kind of thing. So it's going to just kind of be like this ambience of various buildings at various sizes, various windows, and we're just and because of just kind of the limitations of our budget of how much we can make, we kind of have to repeat a lot of this. So it's a lot about kind of repeating things um in a way that makes it not look like it's too repetitive. Like you have to change each one a little bit. So we'll make like kind of one building, use it like 5 times and just alter a little bit on it just to kind of get the feeling. But we'll kind of keep things clustered in a way where it's modular and kind of feels unique.
And sometimes I guess having different faces to a building can help you use it in such a way, right?
Yeah, possibly too. And then I wanted to kind of get into, so the center of the town is actually going to be it's actually what I kind of really wanted to get into, wanted to talk about was it's going to kind of be this image that kind of ties the entire town together. It was actually going to be a little girl who's actually a tree who's dancing. And it's kind of ties together a lot of the imagery that I felt um, kind of signify that it was a very ethereal, dreamlike state, a dreamlike village. It wasn't grounded in a real place, and it would have been. I guess it's because it's going to have like this kind of celestial quality where everything's going to kind of be white, glowing, and it's going to be kind of going precipitating upwards with particle effects. And that's kind of where we wanted to go. I mean, I guess that was the image that we showed in the stream. Oh,
And the
stream
social media
announcement.
posts. Yeah.
Oh yeah, the social media posts and such. And I'll just kind of show an example of where I'm at right now with this. This was kind of like it sort of evolved. Like it started where I wanted the girl to be posed and dancing, like she's dancing and reaching for something. But it was kind of difficult to make her integrated into a tree. And then someone suggested that it actually would look cool with wings. And so I just started, if the tree were wings, because I decided that I was going to start evolving it as a tree out of the back. And then it said, oh, that looks like wings. Like, hey, how about I make it wings? And this is sort of like, we kind of wanted to build a mythology because this is one areas in the entire game where we're actually not borrowing from existing mythologies. It's the area that Bjorn and I kind of get to create our own mythology from scratch. So we get to kind of sort of decide what we want this dream world to be, right? So I wanted to kind of go into more technical detail about this, but I figured you guys probably aren't really that interested in how I'm sculpting this or the kind of the nitty gritty of the tools I'm using or whatever. So I'll just kind of like maybe leave it sort of at that. I'll probably go into another stream about how the sculpting process of this, but that's more of an art related stream, I guess. It'll probably be more either time lapsed or me talking to other artists.
Yeah. No, I think it's a good idea
Oh,
for.
that's really
yeah.
cool.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea for like this stream. I want to keep kind of focused more on sort of game production stuff, but definitely like a regular stream where you're talking about like the whole process of sculpting these things and like all the stuff you're going through and things like that is great.
So one thing that we wanted was we were toying around the idea of having this kind of dancing girl be the logo. And so this kind of poses a couple of interesting challenges. Is like we need, if she was going to be kind of like a part of the silhouette, something like this would have to be kind of like the silhouette of our logo. Let me put the hair on so she doesn't look so. Got some hair on there. Got like a little bow tie thingy there.
She's got a bow tie.
Look, I mean, look, sorry, a bow.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, so we wanted maybe something like this to kind of be the logo for the game. just kind of the general shape with the tree for wings and the flowers and everything like that blossoming out of the back. But because of we wanted to have this silhouette right here, the problem was it actually had to look cool. It had to look good in the game view, which is like a top-down isometric, which kind of made it a bit more of a challenge because like I had an animator friend of mine. He's Taran Matharu, who's like I think he's the lead animator. He was at Rodeo Effects. I don't know. I think he's back at Real Effects now. He kind of helped me with the pose, like helped me with the balancing and kind of the lines of energy and stuff like that. I said I need it to look good from the side, but it also has to look good from the top where you would actually see it in the game. And so we actually had to spend like an entire morning working on this, trying to get it kind of working. So maybe in the game it'll probably be like you have to show the foot somehow, but it'll somehow be like an angle that'll be interesting for. Yeah, we'll get there.
Yeah. Yeah, and the thing, something I'm kind of interested in, because like normally when you model stuff, it's in a T pose.
Yeah.
And so what, like modifying, like, because you don't have a skeleton here, I assume, to like pose it properly. So how exactly is how do you find the process of like modeling in a specific pose and then having to alter it?
I actually really like it.
Yeah?
What happened was that I actually downloaded a model that that had a rig in it. It was a very, very bare bones model. And what I did was I just basically posed it how I wanted to in 3ds Max. And then I took it into then I just kind of collapsed it, brought it to ZBrush. Like, and it was really, really basic. Like it was maybe like I think 1,000 polygons maybe. So then I took it from that as the base pose and I was able to start kind of sculpting out from there. So that was kind of the process. And actually I really like doing these kind of pose things because you don't get to do them very often. Of course, this isn't very refined. I haven't really gotten into the wrinkles yet. I haven't really gotten into this. Like, in fact, the first hour, I just kind of wanted to kind of correct the anatomy. And then I realized, oh, well, you're probably not going to see a whole lot of the anatomy if it's a tree. So, and if it's a glowing white tree, basically. So we'll see. We'll see where that
and like,
goes.
because this is not like, it's not fall or winter, so it's going to be like, there's going to be, I don't know if leaves is how some kind of stuff on the branches.
I was thinking, I was thinking something like cherry blossoms that kind of, but they don't fall down. They actually kind of go upwards.
Oh, okay.
So like you'd be here, like so the game camera, if you'd be kind of like, let me see. This is a terrible material to show. Let's put another material on just to see.
Beauty of it is it's a dream, right? So you can do pretty much anything you want with that character to make it more dreamlike. And I feel like the way you explain it, you want it to be more of an immersive piece.
Yeah. So we do kind of want to infer the lore. We haven't quite gotten to a stage where we're ready to maybe share what we want the lore, that lore to be. But it is something that we are kind of thinking about when we kind of make this.
Like the main focus for a lot of it is the lore from the other realms you go to, not necessarily the lore from the lore that we get into throughout the game. Is like all the characters are talking about the places they're from. They're not necessarily explaining all the details of the village.
Yeah.
So.
And we'll get there eventually one day.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So kind of doing a quick one over of the other shops that we wanted to make. So I guess this was the references for the tree. So for the boat, this was going to be kind of the reference for the boat. Visually, we just kind of wanted it was going to borrow loosely off of the Celtic boats, but it's not going to be like a historically accurate boat. This is kind of one of the things that we wanted to keep harping on about the art direction for the game, is that it's borrowing elements from, but it's not a one-for-one historical accurate recreation. And it's not because we
is that going to be a T-Rex on the Celtic boat?
Yeah. Well, it's more like kind of what Marvel did with Thor, with Asgard, right? It's kind of borrowing elements from and kind of making it our own rather than paying a complete homage to that. It's sort of like, well, this is kind of our re-envisionment of it, and we're going to be careful not to do anything that's too like not offensive, but like, because I don't think people are too offended by borrowing elements from a culture. But it's also kind of we're not recreating the Celtic world. It's just going to kind of be like, oh well, it's various elements from that area of the world at that time. And when we get to the Asian world, it's going to be kind of like that too. It's like it's going to just kind of be a borrowed from various mythologies of that of like different countries of different eras, things that inspired us to kind of create this sort of unifying world, I guess, from that era, from that time. So, uh, so the consumable shop was it was difficult because like so when I sent this out to the concept artist, Mike Deng, a very brilliant concept artist based out of Toronto. It was difficult because I had to show him a bunch of interiors, but I said I don't want it to be an interior. I want it to be an exterior. And so it's going to be kind of like a collection of things that they sell, and everything's kind of has to look like it's coming out of the boat. And so it's going to be kind of like more of a Celtic inspired thing, but the important thing is that it looks just kind of very busy. It has to look like consumable shops.
Oh, what's the word I was going to use? Like a street market at like near the docks or something like that, where they just take stuff right off the ship and open the crate, and it's like, okay, you can buy it right out of the crate.
Yeah. So the funny thing about each of the shops is they do kind of have like a similar, I would say, busyness to them. But the thing is what the things that you kind of want to show in one shop, and the props and the items, things are going to kind of infer sort of the flavor. So in the consumable shops, it's going to be things like fruits and potions or fruits and like, bottles of stuff and things that look like you're going to drink them or eat them or whatever, just because that's going to be it's going to help it differentiate itself from the weapons shop and the totem shop.
Yeah, it makes it readable. Those are pretty standard things to see. Like the potion is the classic icon for an item shop.
And we have things like teapots and cooking spits and flower pots even, and just because I think we also wanted to have like other things where like quests where you get flowers or herbs for tea, things like that. So and it doesn't actually always have to be like something that you eat. It could be something that you use to make something to eat, like a cooking spit or pots and pans, So there was kind of that. Where are we? Where did that? And then when we got to the totem shop was going to be sort of like this. At the time, we were thinking it was going to be sort of like a mystical shop where the totems were actually going to be elements of statues that you kind of put together, or like a gyroscope or like a globe. And but the problem is once we started getting more and more and more of these, I realized, well, I don't know if we have the time to model, 100 objects that break apart. So we decided to kind of tone it down and make it tomes. So it's going to be like a bunch of tomes. But the nice thing is a lot of these sort of mystical ornaments and objects kind of still apply to the tomes, because it's supposed to be sort of like this. Like it's not just like a library, it's actually sort of like a mystical type book. So we can still kind of have a lot of these ornaments like candles, candle holders, kind of the gears inside of a clock, urns and things like that. And that would sort of help infer that as kind of being the more mystical shop that we play with. And these are just mood boards. These aren't the actual concepts for the game. We'll get to that. And the armory was just going to be kind of like standard weapon shop. And we just kind of needed the weapons to sort of look like they're on display, but it also the building itself had to look like a weapons shop. So this is kind of where things got a bit, I would say, interesting, because we faced a few challenges regarding how to, like, technical challenges, I would say. The first one is we didn't want you to walk inside of the buildings, because that would mean we'd have to model a brand new interior of a building. We'd have to have a whole bunch of other stuff and a whole bunch of other I guess, art that we're not really prepared to make. And
well,
not to mention,
it's also like manually fitting. Like the dojo is kind of the exception, or the training hall now is kind of the exception, because we need the space. But generally, like, we can't, because of the nature of our game, like, we basically need to cheat it, which is easier to do in 2D when you're swapping out. We walk into a building, then you just swap it out. But in 3D, it's like we need to figure out a place to pack everything in.
A lot of the hubs that are kind of the games that are inspiring us, they didn't actually even have like a building that you walk into. It's just sort of like like Diablo and Bastion. They're just sort of like kiosks in a way. So a lot of them look like shops you can go in, but you don't actually go into them. They're just sort of kiosks that you enter, and then you talk to a shopkeep at the front, and they'll kind of say, "Oh, hello there." So then I kind of So this is sort of where we wanted to kind of go with the direction of these buildings and such. So we hired this really, really awesome concept artist out of Toronto to help us with a lot of this. And he did some exceptional work for us. So what he did, here, let me load it up. Okay, it's on my desktop. Here we go. So I had Photoshop open up. These are all targets. Hello, Photoshop. Hello, Photoshop. Oh,
Wait, do you need Photoshop to look at targets?
well, I mean, I already have Photoshop open.
Yeah, might as well. I
Come
haven't
on,
used it in a
open.
long time because I don't really work with targets, but there was something called InfraView, I think.
InfraView.
Yeah, which is really useful for basically any kind of image browsing.
So this is our Totem Shop. This is kind of our new Totem Shop. It's just the architecture. So before I go into this, I kind of maybe want to quickly plug Mike's work, just because he was someone I discovered kind of on ArtStation, and it was actually a couple of pieces he recently did that sort of popped up on my feed, and it really kind of stood out because he did something that really it stood out to me in such a crazy readable way, and it's this is the kind of stuff that I want to see in our game. So he made this sushi shop, and I think this was kind of what was trending on ArtStation, luckily at the time. And this sushi shop is just like, man, I really, really like this. It's kind of like this futuristic sushi shop, and the main thing about Mike's work that I really, really loved was how readable it was. How it wasn't like a lot of times when you come across an environment artist, they go for more of like mood pieces. Like they'll go for kind of impressionistic type bold colors and whatever, but I didn't feel like I really needed that. What I needed not was a mood, but actually like a borderline a technical drawing, but also kind of one that had a lot of character and one that kind of helped with the readability. So this sushi shop, and I think most of Mike's work was kind of like that, where he really knew how to sell kind of the building or the environment, or he knew how to sell the story or the idea of kind of what he was doing. So that's why when I contacted him, and he, luckily for us, he had some availability to help us kind of flesh out these buildings a bit more. And he's actually still working for us. He's doing some he's doing kind of the one of the key art pieces. So this was kind of the Totem Shop, and you can see I kind of gave him a bit of carte blanche because he was such a good artist that you don't really want to step in front of them and say, I want you to do it like this and start nitpicking. You just say, okay, well, surprise me with what you can do with sort of this direction that we want you to go with. And for the most part, he's really kind of nailed sort of that and kind of taken things beyond where I would have even thought of them going. I think if I were kind of to do this blindly, I would have made them a lot more rigid looking, but because he took the flowing a lot more literally than I thought I would have, it's really kind of cool where he took this. So the Totem Shop is like this. The come on. Oh my god. Switch image. Oh, tree, nope. So this was the dojo. So one thing that he did that was interesting, the first building he designed for us was the Armory. I'll switch to the Armory. And he actually put kind of this armor here, which sort of surprised me as like a design decision. But after he did this, we're like, you know what, that reads really well. Let's keep going with this sort of thing with the rest of the buildings. And so that's when he decided to kind of add the Totem Shop like that. He added for the dojo, he added the kind of the bow and arrow, which I think I'll probably have to make stand out a little bit more in the modeling. But yeah, it's just we've been really impressed with kind of his work and kind of where he wants to take things. And so we're kind of hoping that with all of these, we can kind of help refine and build the world and the lore of kind of Dreams Reach. And yeah, any questions so far?
I can only comment that you can see in this building in particular the some of the elements of the Art Nouveau you talked at the beginning of the stream, the nice arches, the faces on the columns.
Mhm.
So you can see that direction you want to take really well in this.
Yeah. Yeah, so this one was Yeah, this one was pretty well done. He actually played around with a couple of versions of this one without the archway above, but I find a lot of like this one. The other thing is we can probably integrate some more elements when we do the actual modeling, but because I think he has like there is enough here, I think, for us to work off of and build off of. Probably a few, maybe add another wave here or so, but there are those elements in there. And I think because the other thing that we really like about this is because the buildings all look so uniquely different from each other. It's but it all kind of represents the same style. It'll be made with kind of the same materials and such. Hold on, I got some more. Actually. I don't know where I put it. Uh, here, where everything is so slow.
What's your CPU at right now?
I'm not sure. So this is the consumable shop as well. And like I said, this is the more Celtic inspired one. So this one has kind of got the more Hiberno-Saxon type interlayings, and it's got, it doesn't kind of rely on the more flowery elements, and it's just sort of on its own. And then there's God damn it. Can't even like move something over. And yeah, so the final one is this is really aggravating right now trying to do this. The boat. God.
Do you still need ZBrush open?
Probably not. But it's usually not this bad. I guess maybe because
Yeah.
it's just running the stream.
It could be because you're sharing your full screen.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is kind of the direction we wanted the boat to go. And it's funny because we told Mike initially maybe we were thinking of having it more like a what's it called? A like more Celtic boat with like the shields on the sides. But after we discussed it a bit, he's like, it looks kind of boring, a little plain. You'll give me a lot more space, but he actually made it like a proper sailboat. And so we gave him kind of the freedom to kind of go beyond that because we weren't really locked that strongly into it being, just a rowboat, I guess. But yeah, so we've been really happy with the work he's done so far with this, and kind of kind of itching to get actually working on the actual town, on the village. So we're yeah, I guess taking it to 3D and kind of bringing it to life is sort of the next step for this town.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's about all I have really to talk about.
Cool.
Yeah,
Any
they look
questions?
really good. Yeah, really like bold
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
icon, like iconography and stuff like that.
Yeah. So he's done some really good work for us. We're really happy with what he's done, and really hoping to take this kind of into the game and bring it to life, I guess.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I guess one of my questions is like, how big would the player be in terms of scale compared to these buildings?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't think I actually grabbed a screenshot of that, did I?
Not
Well, you can
really.
see Neath there.
Mhm.
That tiny little character there. So, and the main player character is smaller, is like right around there. So
Half
that's
the
like,
side, yeah.
yeah, about half the Neath size. So, uh, pretty small, I guess. That's another kind of one of the major challenges is the scale is really difficult to kind of fill in because I think one of the buildings takes up say more than half the screen. Like the entrance takes like this is like one more than one gameplay screen, so you don't see the entire building in one go, or you very
Okay.
seldom get to, right? So it's
Here I can
um
quickly.
here, let me do I have any screenshots of this?
Actually,
I don't think I have anything actually off the
I
top of
can
my
load it
head.
up.
So I guess that's also one of the points where you were talking about filling up the space and adding NPCs and stuff like that, right? Because
Mhm.
if that scale is so large, it's
Well,
gonna look very empty if you don't add anything to it.
Well, I think the other thing that we're the kind of the next challenge we're running into is to try and make the main thing is that the gameplay feels like it's well paced. If we had to kind of bunch everything together, you'd put like a dojo here and you put the armory here, they just like you'd be like 3 seconds between running between them, whereas you kind of want a little more space for I guess the gameplay to breathe. So I
Yeah,
think
for sure.
Not necessarily
so what
in
we
the
have to,
hub, but it's like you
yeah.
because the one tricky thing for us is we want them to be far enough apart that they kind of feel like a different area, but
Mhm,
since like our camera's locked looking down, it means you
mhm.
can only see to the edge of the screen. So we need to make sure it's easy to figure out. Okay, I'm at the dojo. Which direction do I need to go to get to the consumables or the armory? Because you can't see them and you can't look off in a direction like you can in a game like
Mhm.
Link, or I want to say I was going to say Link to the Past, Breath of the Wild, or any kind of 3D action adventure game where you can actually turn the camera and look and
Mhm.
view the distance.
Well, it
Yeah,
helps a lot that they look like landmarks,
Mm.
so you
yeah,
should be able to spot them as soon as you see them.
Yeah, and
yeah.
like we have this sort of cobblestone path right now, but there's going to be. Do you want to show that paint over, Jacque?
Sure. So
The
the paint over isn't quite really where we want to go. It's kind of like the first oh god, I closed it. It was sort of like the first pass that Mike did before we realized that I probably needed like an animator's help to try and get the posing correct.
Mhm.
So something like that. Now, the thing about oh, you mean the paint over, right? Sorry.
Mhm.
We're talking about completely different things here. Sorry about that.
Yeah, just we have a quick paint over because that what he was just showing was a screenshot of like what we have now in game, pretty much.
Mhm.
And that's all like programmer art. That's all stuff I threw in. But we
Yeah.
did. I think Mike did a
So,
paint over of it, showing like
yeah.
kind of better representation of how it's going to look.
Yeah. So this is gonna be kind of like where we wanted it to look. I guess more filled in with a lot more of the buildings, a lot more of kind of the ambience. We want to have the open areas. The main thing I wanted we also wanted to kind of get at is so we have the tree in the center, the girl dancing in the center, but also we're gonna have some interesting trim that kind of shows the direction, like kind of points in a different direction. So at any point in time, if you as long as you kind of see a bit of a bit of kind of like the circle, you'll be reoriented as to where you are in relation to the tree based on we'll have like some special we'll have like a special kind of decor that kind of helps push that idea. We have a lot of I guess references on various games and various concept art that we created as a mood board for the flooring and kind of the challenge, I guess, for a lot of this game is that 90% of this game is actually floor. Right? So, and that's the thing is when Bjorn and I were kind of coming up with like the settings for this, like we were thinking like open vistas, we're gonna have like a Tower of Babel there. You're gonna see this other thing, but then we get into the isometric, like, oh yeah, you don't really see much of that. It's it's all floor all the time, right? So we have to. It's funny because now it's become kind of a bit of a challenge making the floor look interesting. So yeah, so yeah, that's it's funny because now I'm kind of addicted to a lot of these top-down isometric games that I think look really cool, and I'm just really just trying to take screen grabs and things like that of inspirations I can use to make cooler looking flooring, and I guess that's sort of like the challenge of working on an isometric game, like what's a Titanfall game or Grim Dawn or Diablo or Bastion or whatever. Like
Hmm.
it's floor.
Oh, sorry, I just realized
Yes.
something was wrong. Uh,
So I know, Bjorn, you mentioned this before.
mhm.
Um, like as you progress through the game, the hub might change a bit.
Yeah.
uh,
Like buildings getting upgraded, new areas being opened. That
Mhm.
paint
New
over
areas
looked
get open and stuff.
pretty confined. Is there any plans to like have add-ons or are areas going to be unlocked or how's that going to
Uh,
work?
there's a few areas like basically some of these buildings will get removed and will like
Mhm.
you'll expand out to the side and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And this is actually most of it. This is when it's kind of complete. Like the ship
Yeah.
won't be there at the start because the guys from the Celtic realm aren't there yet.
Yeah.
And so there's going to be different states for the buildings, and like you can't get inside the training hall at the start of the game, so that it'll be locked off. It'll still be there, but it'll be locked off. And then we might do stuff similar
Yeah.
stuff to the other buildings as well, where
We can maybe find a way to sort of gate off these each quarter. I guess you'd say.
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, that's just kind of one idea. So maybe you don't even have access to that area until you finish kind of the part that you're supposed to go to.
Let's see. I'm just gonna see
Yeah.
if I can run this.
I realize that we're missing this the puzzle that we have here.
Oh, over
The
there.
puzzle that we
Yeah,
have here.
okay.
Yeah.
It's
I mean, that's whatever you fill it in.
yeah. Well, that's one of the things is like because if these buildings are modular, like we can place them individually. Like they're not going to be clumped together as one solid mesh. All of the buildings, so we can just like pick. We can just shuffle them around as needed, and we can have it there at the start, and then when we want to do the puzzle, we just hide that one, and it should work fine.
So, yeah, there's a. The other thing is like the nice thing about a lot of hubs in these games is that they do kind of have to evolve and change throughout the game because it's sort of indicative of kind of the player's own progression.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times you'll see these hubs, and I think what we'll have is we're just going to have we're going to kind of cut off access to this quarter until you get to there, cut off access to this quarter until you get to there, and basically. Maybe we'll have it open or empty, or we'll have it cut off. It'll be interesting. But you'll kind of feel the evolution of you being gaining access to that area, that quarter, progress. Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you also have a tree at the middle, you can play with that. You know, changing poses, having it grow or something.
We were talking about something like that.
Yeah. Like that's kind of the thing is like this is definitely a metaphysical place, so it's like we can have weird things like that happen where it's like, oh, the tree's alive in more than one way and stuff like that. So sorry, I'm just running the game here so we can look at some scale.
Sure.
So this is how big the player is. This is kind of roughly how the camp will be placed. That's East Dojo, and then like if I checked and hit, there we go. Oh, I can set it to lit still. Oh, it is lit still. So yeah.
So yeah, it's big enough to really make an impact on the character, right?
Yeah.
Get rid of that UI. There
Anyway.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not even. Is that the game? No, that's not. That's the game angle, but that's not the game view. I think the game view is much more zoomed in. Yeah.
Yeah, like this is. Yeah, this is all zoomed out. If I go, so I have to like go back down and then possess, and this is the actual game view. And it zooms in and out depending on what the player's doing. Like if players run in opposite directions, it starts to zoom out a bit, and if they're running and stuff like that, then it'll zoom out. But generally, this is roughly the distance you'd see. So as you're going around, you like pass the entrance to the dojo or the trading halls. We should start calling it. Like the library with totems.
Yeah.
Yeah. And okay.
Cool.
Cool. Very cool.
So now the next step is to actually get there and make it.
Oh, one thing I did. This is not really art related, but I added some transparency to the dialogue stuff. So that when you're not actually talking to the person, you can actually like go behind it, and it's not really obscuring your vision.
Oh, that's cool.
Because you used to get like completely lost if it was like completely white and you were behind it, and you're just like, where am I? So I added some transparency to it if you're too far away from the person talking.
Oh, that's cool.
It's
little details like that you won't even notice, and they just work.
Yeah, it's just tons of little quality of life improvements that are like. It doesn't annoy you, so it's good. It's the easiest way to put it.
Yeah, it's not something you notice as a player because someone ran into that before and made that good design decision.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I can't remember, like, I don't know if it's a saying or because there's certain people that like if they're doing their job, then you don't. If they're doing their job well, then you don't even notice that they're doing their job, and that's one of the things about design is like, if a game has really good design, you don't even notice it most of the time because it's just nothing gets in your way, and it doesn't get frustrating.
I like how George Fan had that talk about Plants vs. Zombies 2, where people didn't even know the entire game was just a tutorial of playing the game.
Yeah.
Very
well, I mean, that's the best way to build something, right? not having something holding your hand all the way through. But my most common examples are always Mega Man X for that, and Hollow Knight, where they throw you in situations where you have to press buttons and figure what they do, right?
Yeah.
So
Dark Souls.
Yeah.
Dark Souls pretty much explains itself at the beginning, but then it leaves you to figure everything else out, like poison, stuff like that, and how much you have to dodge.
Yeah.
All right.
Definitely no hand holding in that.
And
Yeah.
so I don't know if I have anything else to say about the art. So should we end the
Okay.
stream?
Yeah, that was pretty
looking
good.
good.
I mean, you were worried. You said it's like, oh, I think I only have like 10 minutes of stuff to talk about.
Yeah.
And we started 20 minutes late.
Yeah.
But it's after 10 o'clock. We filled up
All
our
right.
time.
So,
And we
yeah,
added a lot of
partway
bonus
there.
content about how to set up OBS on Twitch.
Yeah.
It wasn't.
Well, I mean,
it wasn't technical difficulties. It was bonus content.
there you go. It's not a bug; it's a feature, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's also the benefit of having, a few of us up here being able to ask questions and throw you, interesting stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
so we can get
Yeah.
the good stuff out there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
hopefully we'll edit out that first 20-minute fiasco. 20 upload.
Yeah.
I mean that's
put it on
on
the
Bjorn. It's him you have to bribe if you don't want to show it.
Well, the thing is, like, I don't even have the file. Jacque has it right now because he was recording it on his computer, and then I have
Right.
the rest of it on my computer. But yeah,
Right. So I think we have to go another run on that before I do it again. But if it's going to be that choppy and it's going to slow my computer down, I think it's not going to work as well as I had hoped.
yeah, we might have to do some other tests and figure out where the bottleneck is there on your computer because
Well,
it might be you have too much stuff open. The thing is though, like sharing your stream can be pretty CPU intensive, especially if you don't have a multi-threaded CPU. So, but it's something we'll look at offline. We don't need to talk about it on stream. So, good night, everybody. Thanks for stopping by.
Good night.
Yeah, thank you so much, guys.